The whole town thought the killing was over. They were wrong. By the time the church bell rang for midnight, another body was hanging from the water tower with a bullet hole between the eyes and a piece of burnt leather stuffed into his mouth. Nobody needed to ask who did it. Only one man in all the Texas left burnt leather behind, the cowboy they used to call Eli Mercer. And after 7 years gone without a trace, he had finally come home.
The rain hit the empty streets like nails as Sheriff Wallace stepped onto the porch of the jailhouse, staring at the body swaying in the darkness. His jaw tightened. Half the town watched from behind windows, too scared to come outside. Wallace removed his hat slowly. "Damn you, Eli," he whispered, because he knew exactly what this meant. The revenge had started, and it would not stop until every man responsible for the Mercer family massacre was dead.
7 years earlier, Red Hollow had been a different place. Quiet, honest. Families left doors unlocked. Children played near the river after sunset. Eli Mercer lived on a small ranch outside town with his father, mother, and little brother Caleb. People trusted the Mercers. That trust disappeared the night the black vultures rode into town. Nobody knew where the gang came from. Some said former soldiers. Others claimed escaped killers from Mexico. But one thing was certain: they enjoyed blood.
Led by a cold-eyed outlaw named Gideon Crow, the gang robbed banks, burned farms, and killed anyone who looked at them wrong. And one night, they came for the Mercer Ranch. Eli had been 17, too young, too slow. He still remembered the smell of smoke when he woke up, still remembered hearing his mother scream outside. He ran downstairs and saw flames swallowing the walls. His father lay dead beside the table with his throat cut open. Caleb was crying near the door. Then the gunshots came.
Eli grabbed his little brother and escaped through the back while shadows moved through the fire behind them. But they didn't make it far. Riders emerged from the trees. Black coats, silver revolvers, the black vultures. Caleb was ripped from Eli's arms. Eli begged them, screamed, cried, but Gideon Crow only smiled. Then one of the gang members shot Caleb in the chest and dropped his body into the mud. Eli charged at them with nothing but rage. That was his mistake. Someone smashed a rifle against his skull. Everything went black.
When he woke the next morning, the ranch was ashes, his family was gone, and Red Hollow had already buried them. The sheriff searched for the gang for months, but people slowly moved on. Outlaws came and went in those days. Graves filled fast in Texas. But Eli Mercer never moved on. He vanished. Some believed he died in the mountains. Others thought he joined criminals himself. But the truth was worse. Eli spent 7 years hunting monsters.
He learned how killers think, learned how they hide, learned how fear works. Former bounty hunters trained him. Drifters taught him to shoot. A Mexican knife fighter showed him how to kill a man before he could blink. And every lesson built one thing inside him: hatred. Cold, patient, endless hatred. Now he was back, and the first vulture was already dead. Sheriff Wallace walked through town the next morning while whispers spread like wildfire. Mothers dragged children indoors. Shopkeepers locked doors early. Everybody knew the names of the men who rode with Crow all those years ago.
Most of them had settled quietly around Red Hollow, pretending they were decent citizens now. But Eli remembered. Wallace stepped into the saloon and found Deputy Harris pale as death. "They found another one," Harris muttered. Wallace froze. "Where?" "In the stables." The second body belonged to Tom Barrett, another former vulture. 3 knife wounds, slow death, blood everywhere. Pinned to his chest was a message carved into wood: 4 left. Wallace closed his eyes. Because he understood something the town didn't. Eli wasn't killing blindly. He had a list.
and Gideon Crow stood at the very end of it. That night, Wallace rode alone toward the old Mercer ranch. The ruins still stood black against the moonlight. He found Eli sitting beside the ashes, older now, harder. A scar crossed one side of his face, and his revolver rested across his lap. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Wallace sighed. "You should have stayed gone." Eli stared into the fire. "You should have finished the job 7 years ago." Wallace clenched his jaw. "We tried." "No," Eli said quietly. "You hunted them for 3 months, then gave up. They disappeared."
"And now I found them." Wallace stepped closer. "You kill these men, Crow will come for this town." Eli finally looked up. "Good." The sheriff saw it then. There was almost nothing human left in the cowboy sitting before him. Only revenge wearing a man's skin. "You're becoming just like them," Wallace warned. Eli's eyes darkened. "No, they killed innocent people." Then he stood. "And I kill murderers." Before Wallace could react, Eli mounted his horse and disappeared into the darkness. The third death came 2 days later.
Jacob Pike was found nailed to the barn doors outside town, with his own shotgun stuffed beneath his chin. 3 left. Panic exploded through Red Hollow. Men armed themselves. Businesses closed. Former gang members began sleeping together inside Gideon Crow's heavily guarded ranch north of town. And Crow himself finally emerged from hiding. Older than before, gray in his beard, but his eyes remained cruel. He gathered the remaining vultures around a table. "Eli Mercer ain't a boy anymore," Crow said calmly. "He's hunting." One outlaw spat tobacco. "Then let's hunt him first."
Crow shook his head. "You already tried that 7 years ago." Silence filled the room, because deep down they were afraid, not of death, of Eli. Stories followed him now, entire gangs wiped out in border towns, bounty hunters disappearing after chasing him, men claiming they saw him survive gunshots that should have killed him. Some whispered he wasn't human anymore. Sheriff Wallace rode to Crow's ranch the next morning, hoping to stop a war before blood drowned the town. Instead, he found Crow smiling on the porch. "You can't stop this, Sheriff," Crow said. "You could leave."
Crow laughed. "This is my town." "No," Wallace replied coldly. "It stopped being yours the moment you burned that family alive." For the first time, Crow's smile faded. "You were there too, Wallace." The sheriff's stomach tightened. Crow leaned closer. "You think Eli knows the truth?" Wallace said nothing, because there was truth hidden beneath the ashes of the Mercer ranch, a truth that could destroy everything. 3 nights later, Eli finally struck Crow's ranch. The attack came during a thunderstorm.
Horses screamed in terror as lanterns shattered one by one. Gunshots erupted through darkness. By the time Crow's men understood what was happening, 2 guards were already dead. Eli moved like a ghost through the rain. 1 bullet, 1 kill, never missing. A terrified outlaw ran into the barn, only to find Eli waiting inside with a knife. The screaming lasted less than 10 seconds. Crow and the remaining men barricaded themselves inside the house while bullets tore through windows. Sheriff Wallace arrived moments later with deputies. "Stop shooting!" he roared.
Silence answered him. Then Eli stepped from the shadows holding a rifle. Rain poured down his face. "Move aside, Sheriff." Wallace drew his revolver slowly. "No more killing tonight." Eli's eyes narrowed. "You protecting murderers now?" "I'm protecting this town." Eli laughed bitterly. "This town watched my family burn." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" The deputy shifted nervously while thunder rolled overhead. Then Crow shouted from inside the house, "Tell him the truth, Wallace." The sheriff's face changed instantly. Eli noticed, and suddenly the rain felt colder.
"What truth?" Eli asked quietly. Crow laughed from behind the door. "You never wondered why your family was targeted?" Wallace yelled, "Shut up, Crow!" But it was too late. Crow opened the door slightly, grinning like a devil. "Your daddy stole something from me, boy." Eli froze. "My father wasn't a thief." "Oh, but he was." Crow smiled wider. "Back before he became a rancher, Samuel Mercer rode with us." The world seemed to stop. Eli's breathing slowed. "No."
He robbed trains with us, killed with us. Crow's voice sharpened. Then he betrayed us and vanished with our money. Wallace looked sick, because it was true. Eli stepped backward slowly. "You're lying." Crow tossed something into the mud. An old photograph. Eli picked it up with trembling hands. His father stood beside Crow in the black vultures, smiling, young, armed. The truth hit like a bullet. His father had once been one of them. "All those years," Crow whispered, "you hunted monsters without knowing your own blood created them." Eli's hands shook violently.
Memories crashed through his mind. His father teaching him to shoot. His father warning never to hate. His father hiding the past. Wallace stepped forward carefully. "Eli." But Eli couldn't hear him anymore. Everything he believed was collapsing. Crow saw the weakness instantly, and he pulled his revolver. Gunfire exploded. Wallace shouted as Eli barely dove aside. Deputies opened fire while Crow's men stormed from the house. Chaos consumed the ranch. One deputy fell dead. Another screamed, clutching his throat.
Eli rolled through mud and shot a vulture between the eyes before slamming into cover. The old rage returned stronger than ever. Maybe his father had been a criminal once. Maybe the Mercer name carried blood. But Crow still murdered innocent people, and Caleb still died begging for mercy. That truth would never change. Eli rose from cover and walked straight into the gunfire. A bullet tore through his shoulder. He didn't stop. Another outlaw charged him with a shotgun. Eli shot him twice in the chest. Crow mounted a horse and fled into the storm. "Crow!" Eli roared.
Then he chased him into the night. Sheriff Wallace followed alone. The pursuit led deep into Dead Man's Canyon, where lightning split the sky like white fire. Crow rode hard through narrow cliffs, while Eli closed the distance behind him. Finally, Crow's horse stumbled near the canyon edge, throwing him violently onto the rocks. Eli dismounted slowly, revolver in hand. Crow coughed blood and laughed weakly. "You really are your father's son." Eli pointed the gun at his head. "My father died trying to become better than you." Crow smiled. "And look what you became."
Sheriff Wallace arrived seconds later. "Eli, don't do this." But Eli barely heard him. 7 years of pain stood before him, bleeding in the dirt. 7 years of nightmares. Crow looked up. "Go on then, finish it." Eli cocked the hammer. Then Wallace shouted, "Your brother's death wasn't Crow's fault." Silence. Even the storm seemed to pause. Eli turned slowly. "What?" Wallace looked devastated. "It was me." Crow started laughing again. Wallace's voice broke. "The gang was supposed to scare your father into returning the money. Nobody was supposed to die." Eli stared at him in horror. Wallace continued, "I rode with Crow once too, years before becoming sheriff. The truth kept getting uglier. I tried stopping them that night," Wallace whispered. "But during the fight, I fired at one of the riders. His eyes filled with guilt. And I hit Caleb by mistake." Eli's entire body went numb. "No." "I buried that secret for 7 years. Crow grinned through bloody teeth. "Turns out the honorable sheriff killed your brother." Eli looked between them, shattered. The men he trusted most.
both tied to the same darkness.
Wallace slowly lowered his weapon. If you want revenge, take it. Eli's hand trembled around the revolver. He could kill Crow, kill Wallace, end everything. Part of him wanted to, but another part remembered Caleb, his little brother laughing beside the river, his mother singing at night, his father trying desperately to escape the life he once lived. And suddenly, Eli understood something terrible. Revenge never ends. It only spreads. One death creates another, and another, until nobody remembers where the hatred started. Crow spat blood into the dirt.
You ain't walking away from this. Eli looked at him coldly. No. Then he fired. The bullet struck Crow directly between the eyes. The outlaw collapsed instantly, dead at last. The storm roared above them. Wallace waited for the second bullet, but it never came. Eli lowered the revolver slowly. I should kill you, he told the sheriff. Wallace nodded. I know. But Caleb wouldn't want that. Tears mixed with rain on Wallace's face. Eli hoisted the gun and stepped toward his horse. Where will you go? Wallace asked quietly. Eli mounted up. Far away from Red Hollow.
You think you can outrun this? Eli stared into the darkness ahead. No. Then he rode away into the storm. Sheriff Wallace never saw him again. Some say Eli Mercer died crossing the desert years later. Others swear he became a bounty hunter, hunting killers across the frontier. But in Red Hollow, people still whisper about the cowboy who came back from hell for revenge. And every time the wind howls through town after midnight, old men glance nervously toward the empty road beyond the canyon. Because somewhere out there, a lone cowboy is still riding through the darkness.
And blood always follows him.